One lesson in life that you'll learn is that sometimes your plans are just not foolproof. Sometimes you can plan, you can do the research, do everything just right, and something goes wrong. Something changes, and you have to make a critical decision at that time. I did the research, I did the plans, I laid everything out, but things changed. Welcome back to The Avenue, and I want to say thank you for the growth of this channel. You guys are making it happen. I love all the comments. I love responding. I respond to each and every one of them. So if you want to write a comment, I will respond to you. So make sure you do that. But today we're going to talk about, and I'm going to share a personal experience that I had with an out-of-state property. Now, things don't always turn out like this, but I do want to talk about it and give you some insight just in case you're thinking about buying an out-of-state property. You know, there's a lot that you have to do to prepare ahead of time, a lot that you need to learn. I learned a lot in the experience. I do not regret it. If something were to happen again, yeah, maybe I would consider an out-of-state property, maybe a little closer to Texas this time. But as a realtor, we find deals all the time, and the mistake that most realtors take is that we don't capitalize on those deals. We want to buy and sell for others, but we don't want to do anything for ourselves. Some of us, not all of us, but we're going to talk about it. So let's jump right into this. I found that the biggest reasons people will kind of discourage you from investing in out-of-state property is because you don't know a lot about that area. Probably you don't know a lot about the area, the economy, the jobs. But with today's technology, and you can actually go visit those areas that you're interested in and get that information online, as well as going and spending some time in that area. Back in 2019, because that's when I purchased the property in Texas. I had just sold the property, and in Texas I had the money sitting there, and I know I wanted to buy another property. Well, in Texas the properties were extremely high, and when I looked at what I could get in Texas as opposed to somewhere else, it just made sense to look outside of Texas. There are planes leaving Austin every day, flying to all parts of the country. So why not just take a look at it? Plus, some of these areas were being hyped up by the people there, by investors there, by realtors there, that this is the best place to invest. And when you did your research, they were pretty good places to invest in. And so I wanted to venture out to see what's the best possible deal I could get for my money. And I wanted to compare a couple of things, and I compared a couple of cities. Some of the cities I looked at was Detroit, Michigan. I looked at Chicago is another city I looked at. And then I looked at several cities in Ohio, because Ohio was the hot state at the time that you could get some great deals on properties, and you could get the same amount of rent there that you could get here in Texas. However, the deal that you would get on buying the property, purchasing the property, was a lot less. Now, you could buy something in Texas, get that same amount of rent. You probably would have to put down more money on it, and it would probably appreciate faster here in Texas than Ohio. But those are some of the things that I had to weigh out when I was looking to do this. So there's a lot of research that has to go into buying a property out of state. You know, since you're not there, it really helps, number one, to have some type of contact there, friends, family, someone who lives in the area that can honestly tell you, that's not connected to the deal, that can honestly tell you what's going on there, if where you're looking is a good area or a bad area in their opinion. Realtors will help you to a certain extent, because they do have an interest in, you know, if you buy something there, they're going to make money. So they're looking out for their pocket as well as yours in most cases. One of the things I would advise anyone to do if you're looking at rental property, investment property out of state, find an agent who either does that on a regular basis, or they have properties that they actually invest in. Don't just get just a realtor that sells and buys houses for people who want to live in their houses. Specifically look for investment realtors out there to help you. What I did, I found a few, and I found, when I narrowed it down to Ohio as the state that I wanted to be in, I found two in the state of Ohio that I spoke to, and I wanted them to them to be different. So I found one lady, she was African American, female, and then I found a Caucasian male that I wanted to talk to because I wanted a different perspective on Ohio. Specifically, Cleveland is where I was looking specifically. So I had narrowed it down because I was looking in Columbia also because Ohio State was there. I knew it was a college town, probably a good town. I did research on it and it seemed like a good town. However, the prices were a little higher there than in Cleveland. So Cleveland was being hyped up, you guys. It was the place to buy, the place to be, and all of that. So, I did my research, found realtors. I also talked to realtors outside of Cleveland. I talked to a realtor in Columbus to see what they thought of Cleveland. So I wanted a full gamut of how this was going to work, what they thought about the area. And I got some real good insight from everyone I spoke with. I had a very dear friend, still a dear friend there that lives there in Cleveland. And before I made my final purchase, I asked her to go by and look at the house because this was bought on my part sight unseen. I did not go to Cleveland. I did not really have any interest in going to Cleveland. I just wanted to find a property there and get something that, was a good deal and, put some renters in it and let's go and make some money out of Cleveland. I had a specific plan. I was going to buy the property and hold it for 7 years. And after 7 years, I was going to sell and pull out of Cleveland. That was the plan. Originally, that was the plan. So I had all of this together. I did my research. I made my contacts there. And the realtor, when I say get a realtor that knows investment properties, because they have connections to contractors, they have connections to appraisal people, lenders, they have other connections out there that you will probably need in that area to help you. So that's one reason. Plus, they know the area. They know what things will sell for. They may know how to get the property or rent it for you and all of that. So that's what I was looking for. And I found that person who sold me the property. And the property that I bought was a bank-owned property. So it was something that had to have some renovations. And I knew that, but the price that it was being offered at and the renovations that I calculated all of that in, I knew how to do that. Calculated all that in. She had a contractor that could do the work for me at a reasonable cost. And so all of that was calculated in. Of course, when you start renovating something, it normally goes a little bit longer and costs a lot more than what you thought. What happened, and I still hung in there because it was trying, because what happened is I bought the property and right after I closed on it, COVID hit. And this was in April, March, COVID hit. And just like all over the country, people didn't want to work because they were receiving those checks. So things were delayed from repairing the property. And so the contractor, she was trying to get guys in to help with the repairs and things were going slower and slower. In the meantime, I was making monthly payments on this property that I was not getting any rent from, right? So that's another thing that happened. And I got so frustrated at one point is I was like, you know what, should I sell? I asked my contractor, should I just sell the property and pull out and just, save all the headache, save the additional money I was gonna have to put in? And she said, no, don't do that. It's in such a nice area. How did I pick the area? Of course, my realtor helped me with the area, but the specific thing that I liked about Cleveland, and I bought the property in Cleveland Heights. Cleveland has a lot of hospitals in it. And if you can get a property close to a hospital, you could possibly rent to nurses and doctors, which are some pretty nice people to work for. They'll have, 18, maybe 24 month stint there. So you will have that continuous income, at least for that amount of time. Also, at the time, Cleveland was hosting a lot of movies and stuff like that. So I could have done some short-term rentals on production companies that were coming in and that type of thing. So long story short, I took a beating behind this delay because of COVID. And finally things started moving again. She started getting the repairs done. And it was not until the next January, I think it's when I got my first tenant in. So all along from about May until January, I was paying the mortgage on this property that I didn't have any money coming in. Now, because I think the way I do, I had money in reserve. After I put the down payment and everything on it, I had money in reserve just in case I wasn't able to get it rented as soon as possible. And I had done my stats as far as how long it takes properties to get rented, the rent rate in Cleveland Heights. I wanted to know all of that, right? But best made plans sometimes don't work. Who knew that COVID was going to hit? Who knew that people were going to stop working? No one knew any of this. So I did the best I could with what I had at the time, the knowledge I had at the time, and kept going with it. I did hold on, you guys, and we got the property rented out. And after I got the property rented out, the next thing was the property management company. In selecting a property management company, of course, I'm going to look at how much they're going to charge and the services that they offer and the contract that I'm going to have to sign, because it may say in there that they have to do all the repairs, or it may say in there that I can select my own contractors to do repairs. And so I wanted someone that was flexible enough that if I wanted to select a contractor to do my own repairs, I could do that, you know. And the fortunate thing is, at the end of before I actually sold the property, I did have a contractor, super guy, knew how to do everything. I mean, cement, anything you wanted, he knew how to do it, replace windows and all of that stuff. So I hired him, and he was reasonable, and I was more than happy to employ him. He used to work for a construction company, and he went to a different job, but those skills, he kept those skills, and he knew exactly what he was doing, because sometimes before he could even work, he had to get permits to do certain things. And he got the permits for me. The communication, lines of communication were great. Never did I worry about him not getting back with me or anything like that. The payment was great. You know, whatever he charged me for, he took pictures and showed me, and he came recommended by my friend there in Cleveland. So I knew that he was a good guy. He was a God-fearing man and everything. So I was very confident that this is going to go great now that I have someone on to work on my behalf. The management company that I selected was not so great. A couple of things happened, and I let them slide for 3 years because I rented the property with them for 3 years. And one of the things that I will never do again is they only wanted to communicate by email. Whenever I needed to talk to them in person, because they didn't seem to be understanding what I was putting in the emails, and we kept going back and forth. And I'm good with communicating by email to a certain extent, but when you're not getting what I'm trying to say in plain English in an email, it's time to pick up the phone and let's have some conversations. Well, the office that I was assigned to, this little group that I was assigned to handle my property, they didn't do that. And maybe it was company policy that everything had to come through email. I even asked, could we just have a phone call? And they responded that unless it's an emergency, we need to communicate through the email. So instead of fooling around with that, I called the property manager, the guy that I actually wrote the contract with me about this property management team, and spoke with him about it, a couple of things that happened. And I try not to involve him in these things because I want to follow the rules, want to do the things that I'm supposed to do. But since I am paying you to manage my property, I expect for you to do that. And if communication is a problem, it's a problem, and we need to take care of the problem. So when it got to the point where we weren't communicating effectively, I needed to get him involved. And that was on several occasions that I had to speak with him and get him involved with what was going on. And I was perfectly fine with it because it was my money that we were talking about. But the management company was the ultimate downfall of why I made the decision to pull out of Cleveland. I did not want to go out after only 4 years of being there. I wanted 3 more years in. However, it was the opportune time to do it. Before we get back to my story, hit that like button and that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on the latest information as it becomes available to you. I'm glad to share these stories with you so you won't make the same mistakes that I made, so that you would learn from it and you could just make great decisions. But just know, just because you make a decision doesn't mean everything will go right. But sometimes you can overcome the decisions. Sometimes you have to make a critical decision to either stay there or leave. I truly love sharing my experience with you guys because they were learning experiences. I'm a better realtor, a better investor now since I've done that out of state. Would I do another out of state property? Absolutely, I would. Probably not that far away because of the travel to get there and back. It's very expensive to go to Cleveland from Texas. And so there's some other things that I would consider before doing that. But the experience wasn't horrible. It just got pretty tedious at the end. Now, the good thing about a management company is that they handle all the complaints, they handle the collecting of the money, they handle all the repairs, and they send you a check at the end of the day as far as everything is pulled out. They do that. And there are some other things that if the grass needs cutting, they have their own company that they can hire. However, I could have hired someone to do it myself. And when I saw the job that this person was doing, I probably would have hired someone to do it myself a lot sooner. I did, however, get a chance to go to Cleveland to see the property. I took pictures of it and everything. My friend got me there on a speaking engagement. And so since I was there, it's like, let me go see my property. I went to see it, took pictures of it. I did not want the tenants to know I was the owner or even that I was there. So I just wanted to see what it looked like in the flesh, so that I would know what I actually purchased. So, and I was content with it. I was happy. It had a new roof on it. I had put a new roof on it and everything. So all of that was fine. However, the management company started to fail me after the first tenant moved out. One tenant stayed and stayed and stayed, but the one of the other tenants, she was a nurse, her extent was over, and so she moved out. So it was time for the management company to work their magic and find another tenant for me. The magic that they work was more like witchcraft than magic because it did not go well. It took them so long. First of all, they sent me this sheet of things that needed to be repaired. They go in, they do an assessment, and they send you this long sheet of everything that needs to be repaired. Well, I looked at it. A lot of the things did not make that much sense to me. I'm thinking, okay, the person had only been in there for about 2 years, and all of this should not have been as messed up as they were saying it was, you know, and they put little things like changing light bulbs, and they did not itemize anything. They put all of this stuff down and basically gave me a total at the bottom, you know, do you want to do it or not? And I'm like, give me an itemization because I want to know, pick and choose. Yes, do this. No, don't do this. And I didn't get any pictures from them. I got a few pictures. I take that back. I did get a few pictures of some of the stuff that they were talking about. And I could see, yes, I needed that repaired. But the majority of the items, I didn't get a lot of pictures. Unbeknownst to me, that I found out later on, this list that they send out is a standard list every time someone moves out, right? So they found me another tenant after, I don't know, it took them about 4 months maybe to find a tenant. So I was losing rent on that side for 4 months. But because my rent was high enough in Cleveland, it was covered by the one tenant being in there. And so you can see now how this was a no-brainer as far as go ahead and purchasing the property and putting tenants in there. And so that was being covered. So I wasn't losing any money. Once I bought it, you all, I never put any more money out of my pocket into it. Anything that I made off the property that I needed something to happen, that's the money that was used to upgrade the property or, you know, replace things and stuff like that. So nothing was coming out of my pocket, which was a great thing, right? So anyway, so they found this tenant. The tenant came in. She had an animal, a dog, and she came in. My other tenant, which she was okay. She complained a lot, but her complaints were going through the property management company, so they weren't coming to me. I saw everything she complained about, but they weren't coming to me. So I didn't have a problem with it as long as they responded to her and get done the things that she was asking to get done within their rights to do it. The other tenant had an animal, had a dog, and she was not supposed to have a dog. I asked them to do, they're supposed to do an annual check where they'll go by and check the property, make sure everything's good inside. They never did the annual check. I asked them about the dog and they said, oh, the next time we're out there, we'll just check on it. They never did that. So when the newest tenant came in with her dog and the other tenant had this dog that she should not have had, The dogs got into it. One of them got bit, got hurt. So my newest tenant, after about 2 months, decided, no more, I want out. So they wrote me and said, they advised me to go ahead and let her break the lease because of what had happened. And the lady was threatening to sue the tenant, the other tenant, and all of this. So it was tenant issues that they should have been handling that could have been handled had they done what I asked them to do. So on the one side, we let the one tenant go that had only been there for a couple of months. On the other side, since the tenant had a dog in there and should not have had the dog, they wrote up an eviction for her. They let her stay there for another, I think, 60 days. And then after that, she was needing to find somewhere else because she had violated the lease agreement with having a pet in there and us not knowing she had a pet. So after that, and the communication issues and all of that, and then they sent me another letter when the first lady moved out. These are assessing that after 2 months of her being in there, you all, assessing these are all the things that need to be repaired. It was almost a carbon copy of the first letter that they had sent me with some extra stuff. So it was more money. Like the first letter, I'll be transparent, the first letter, they wanted like $6,000 or so to go in and do all of this. It was $6,500. The second letter come in after 2 months of them making most of these repairs. They did itemize a second letter, and it's the same light bulb changing and all this kind of checking all this stuff, the detectors. And I said, you know what, you can send it to me, but don't do anything, because at this point I had my own repair guy. And I sent him in this second letter, you all. They wanted me to pay $10,000. Now, after 2 months of someone living there, of whatever she did, repainting the walls and all this, they were telling me repainting ceilings and stuff, they were asking for $10,000. And I'm like, okay, this is a game now, because they're taking advantage of me if I go forward with this. So I sent the assessment to my repair guy, got him entry into the building, and told him to, look to see what really needed to be done, what didn't need to be done. His estimates came back. He did the stuff that really needed to be done to get it rentable again. The stuff that he did came to around, I don't know, $1,700 to maybe $2,000 that needed to be done. And I found out some of the stuff that they were supposed to have done, the property management company, the first time, they did not get around to doing. So without me being there, checking on them, checking on my property, that was something that I didn't have a lot of control over. Now, my repair guy was there for me and he could do a lot. But at this point, I was pretty fed up. I didn't have any renters in the property and I just needed to get it done so that I could sell it. So we got it up and running. Also, because I was an out-of-state landlord, the state of Ohio charges me a certain fee every year just because I don't live there. So they were making money off of me every year because I didn't live there. Then I found out that they were changing some things with rental properties. You had to have certain windows that weren't wooden windows because they may have lead in them. And this property was an older property and it was built in the early 1900s. Beautiful property in a nice neighborhood with, $1 million houses down the street, close to the Cleveland Hospital. It was ideal. It was ideal. So, but that being said, it would cost a fortune to replace all those windows. And I was going to start to get estimates because I thought about it. I'm like, you know what, with all of this going on, probably not. So I contacted a different agent to sell the property. And I asked her, it's like, look, I will keep it if you can recommend a property management company that will be good for me and, would be helpful. And she could not. She had properties herself. She managed her own property. She loved it. She was wanting to buy it herself, but she wasn't in the financial position to buy it. She, put it on the market for me and we got several bids in, bid it up over the price. And by this time, it was in 2024, by this time, it had risen in value. I had put money into it, but it had gone up in value. So I did sell at the ideal time, made money on the property. And so that's pretty much the story behind it. Not any sleepless nights, but some restless nights with this going on. That's not why I bought the property, to have issue after issue after issue, especially when it came to a property management company. I would not recommend them to anybody. I'm not going to say who they are, but if you want to send me a personal email and you're thinking about purchasing something in Ohio, you know, Cleveland or Cleveland Heights, I will tell you the management company to 100% stay away from in that area. But that is what happened, and that's the reason I sold the property. It worked out for me. I did not complete the 7 years like I really wanted to, so I was a little disheartened from that. But I took the money out of Cleveland and went down the street, down the road in Texas, and bought another property, a brand new house. It's rented and everything, so all is well, all is good. So with that, if you have any questions whatsoever, drop them in the comment area. I'll be more than happy to answer anything that I said that was confusing. Let me know and I'll answer it for you. But I did want to share this experience with you. All the time, things don't go the way that we want them to go. Even as a realtor, you know, I take advantage of whatever opportunities that I have. Now people are buying properties out of the country, everywhere, you know, so the world is wide open, you all, and I would not discourage anyone from doing your research maybe and going there and visiting it first to make sure that's where you really want to be and making that purchase. Don't be afraid. Now, I would warn against first-time investors, first-time landlords to do something outside of your state. I think you need to start in close to your city or in your city, so you can get the feel of what this thing is like. And once you get the feel of what it's like, because I've had places that I've rented and owned inside of the city as well as small towns outside of Austin. And so I ventured out to another state, a state far, far away, right? So, but you know, there are other states around Texas that I may be interested in investing in and would not be afraid to invest in an out-of-state property, okay? And with that, I will see you in the next video.